Hi, everybody. My name is Mia Wood. I am an associate professor of philosophy in the Philosophy and Sociology department at Pierce College. This is a video tutorial aimed at acquainting you with the basics of Tarski's World, one of several programs that are designed to work with the textbook Language, Proof, and Logic by John Barwise and John Etchemende. So what we're going to go over include how to open the program, how to understand the two panes, the two windows that you'll see, opening, creating, and saving files, and what the various buttons mean in the windows. That will be the predicate and constant buttons, connective and quantifier buttons, and assessment and game buttons. So what I'm going to do is run through some slides that will give you a basic overview of what we're going to do, and then we will walk through opening the program and using the program, at least the beginning stages of using the program. So let's get started. First, we're going to talk about how you open the program, whether you're using an Apple computer or you are using a non-Mac or non-Apple computer, commonly known as a PC. You are going to be able to open the program from an applications folder. You can drag your programs, if you're using a Mac, to the dock. You can also create shortcuts. So there are a few ways you can do this. You'll also be walked through the two windows of the program, and you see those here. On the left side is the world pane, and the right side is the sentence pane. So I will explain what those mean and how they work. We'll also talk about opening, creating, and saving files. It's imperative, since these programs are used in connection with exercises in the textbook that I mentioned earlier, Language, Proof, and Logic, that you follow the exercise instructions exactingly. In order for you to submit your work, for example, you have to have saved files in a specific way so that the grading program can recognize them as files of a specific sort. We'll also talk about how you can use various commands to open existing files or create new files, and we'll talk a little bit about saving files in a way that will help you be organized. I showed you earlier the two panes in the Tarski's World window, the world pane and the sentence pane, and there are buttons that you will click in order to create sentences. And these are known as blocks buttons. You'll notice also that even though what's highlighted in this shot is the blocks button, there are also buttons for pets names. We will not use the set or arithmetic buttons, but you can mess around with those if you like. We will also eventually look at, starting in chapter 3 and then later in chapter 9, at what are known as connective and quantifier buttons. For the moment, though, when you're first starting out with Language, Proof, and Logic, you will not need to worry about the funny symbols that you're seeing. What you will work with are the lowercase letters A through F. The buttons for assessing sentences and playing the game to understand sentence structures better the buttons are found in the upper left of this screenshot. The far right button is the game button, and then for you to assess whether or not a sentence or a set of sentences is true or are true or false, you can press respectively the T/F button or the multiple TF button. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is my computer's desktop. I have a folder window open, and if I were to just have the desktop open, you can see, well, it's rather a mess. But in any event, I'm going to have us look at a couple of different ways of opening up the Tarski's World program. One way you can do this is to open up a window, Finder window. You can go to an applications folder. I say an applications folder because it will be in different locations depending on what type of computer that you have. And assuming that you have installed the programs, the disk or have downloaded the programs from the internet, you go to your applications folder and you'll see a subfolder called Language Proof and Logic. Click on that. Click on LPL software and you'll see that there are 4 folders. There is the submit folder. I've got a tutorial for that you can look at. There are also 2 other folders that we will get to. We want to focus on Tarski's World, and notice that the application has an icon, and that icon looks like a little cube or dodecahedron rather, and it has a backwards E and an X. So you can either double click on that. Alternatively, if you've dragged the program onto your dock, if you're using a Mac, you can just click on the icon in the dock. What you'll see is basically a 2-sided window. This is the world window, and you're going to put objects in the world. And then the sentence window, I'm going to call them panes, the world pane and the sentence pane. And the sentence pane is used to write sentences that will describe the world. Now you can either type in your own sentences using the keyboard. You can also use the blocks language. The same goes for the world. If you click over into the world window and you want to create some objects, notice in the upper left-hand side of the world pane, you see some objects, pictures of objects rather, and the pop-up that says new. Click on it and you'll notice that an object appears. The default object is a cube. You can create all sorts of objects, though, multiple objects, but also different types of object. And you'll notice again that the default object is a cube, but if you bring your cursor up to the part of the pane where you see 3 different objects, you can change the object type. So you've got a tetrahedron or a tet, a box or a cube, and a dodec or a dodecahedron. You've also got 3 different sizes. The default size is small, then there's medium and large. You can also name the object. One object can have multiple names, but you can't give 2 objects the same name. And let me show you what I mean by that. So suppose that we have here a large dodec and a small cube. If you bring your eye up to the names panel, you'll see that the letters already given to the dodec are grayed out. And that means that you can't name 2 objects the same thing, or you can't give 2 objects the same name. Notice also that this is the sum and substance of the world. In other words, there are 3 different types of object, there are 3 different sizes, and there are 6 names total. Let's go over to the sentence pane now. If we click over here, we can create sentences in the blocks language. We can also type sentences if we want. So there is a large dodec. I just typed it. But you can also, and you'll spend most of your time doing the following, you can also create the sentence in the language and the artificial notation that we'll be using. Now let's spend a little bit of time talking about opening existing files. So you've got a couple of options. One is to go under the drop down menu for File, and you will choose Open. Alternatively, you can just use Control or Command O. And typically, your program will go straight to the Tarski's World exercise files. So you'll notice that when you ask it to open a file, it will automatically go to the exercise files, and you'll open whatever file it is that you want. You can't open a world and a sentence file at the same time. Unfortunately, you've got to do it one at a time. So suppose that we want to open up Koenig's World. We can do that, and notice the world appears. And suppose that we want to open up a sentence file, let's say, oh, I don't know, Aristotle sentences. We have existing files. When you've worked with these files, you'll be told to save them in specific ways. Make sure that when you save these files, you follow the instructions in the book. So let's look at a quick example. Before we look at the example, I want to remind you that you have access in the download or on the CD that you purchased to the electronic version of the textbook, and that's what you see open here. So what will happen is this, when you go into the folder that has your language proof and logic files, the programs and the exercise files, you'll see that you have a manual and the textbook. These are your friends, use them. Anyway, let's go back to the textbook. Let's start with an exercise in chapter 1. So we'll go to 1.3 and we will look at an exercise. So look at 1.2. The instructions tell you that you are going to copy the files. So you're going to type these, sorry, not copy the files. The instructions tell you that you're going to type these sentences 1 through 10, one after the other in the sentence pane. And then you're going to do stuff with it, with these sentences. So let me give you an example. Go into Tarski's World. Remember, we had an untitled sentences window open. The sentences that you are meant to type are as follows. Notice I'm going to make the Tarski's World windows a little smaller so that I can see the files that I'm typing. And I can either use the buttons, tet, A, or I can type in the sentence manually. So I've used the button to type in sentence number 1, which says A as a tet. You've got a couple of options for adding a sentence after. Go to the drop-down menu under Sentence and either click Add a Sentence After, or you can use Control or Command A. And notice if I do that a bunch of times, I get a bunch of sentences. So I mentioned you can use your buttons. You can also type the sentence in manually. Medium A is the second sentence. If we drop down to sentence number 5, notice that this involves a relational predicate. And one of the benefits of using the buttons is that you will be given the default placeholders, the default arity for a multi-place predicate and for a single-place predicate. So sentence 5 says A is in front of B. So I click the front of button and notice that the parentheses and the placeholders appear. So A, front of B. Remember, when you go to save the file, what you're going to want to do is follow the instructions explicitly. So here it says, save these sentences in a file named sentences 1.2. Since the file is currently untitled, you can either use Command or Control S, or you can use the Save Sentences drop down or Save Sentences as drop down. And notice what appears part of the way that you name the file. So here you'd write sentences 1.2, and then you're going to put the saved file in a place that is organized for you. So what I do, for example, is in my logic folder, I have a subfolder and subfolders called exercise keys. And for barwise and etchemendy, I save my exercises by chapter. So that's one way you can do it. The procedure is similar for the files that are pre-existing. In other words, remember I opened up Königsworld. If you mess around with this window, if you mess around with this world because you're following a specific set of instructions in an exercise, what you don't want to do is save over the Königsworld file. Instead, what you'll do is save world as. I hope you find this helpful. One thing you should remember, in addition to the fact that the textbook is available electronically, is also the fact that we have a great software manual that's very useful. So you can find all sorts of interesting things here. For example, shortcuts and ways of using the programs. It's a more robust account than what I've given you in this Get Acquainted tutorial.